right, guys, now that we've spent some time sewing within CLO 3D using segment sewing and free sewing, it's time to customize garments. And to work through this, we'll be using the files titled Materials. And I'll also need you to download a set of prints. The version of CLO 3D that I have does not actually come with any prints. It does come with fabrics. I'm not sure what version you'll be working with, and so just to ensure that we are using the same files, I have loaded all of the prints that I have to a folder on my Google Drive, and this is a link that everyone should be able to access. You'll need to download it, save it to wherever you're saving your practice materials, and then within CLO, you will go to your library. And again, you'll use this little plus symbol to add the folder of prints. Okay. Again, we're working with this file titled Materials, and it is a complete polo, so we will not need to do any sewing. You'll find that if you zoom in closely, it is completely finished. It even features buttons, and if you come in really closely, you should be able to see that it's finished at all of the cuffs and edges as well. Okay. Over here on the right, of course, you have your 2D views. And what we'll be working with mostly today is our object browser and the property editor. Okay. Within the object browser, of course, you've got all of the information related to this particular garment. Under fabric, this file comes with it broken out by body, sleeves, and collar, which are incidental, and we're totally going to override all of these settings. You'll see that it has a button associated with it, as well as a buttonhole, top stitching, and other finishing techniques. I'm going to go back to fabric, and what I want you to do is just to click on any one of these options. And when you click on them, you're going to get all of the property information related to this particular fabric. Now, this is almost completely unhelpful with these fabrics because they're not really fabrics. These are default fabrics that are just being rendered so that you can see something on your avatar. So you'll see, for instance, if I click on body, there is no classification, there is no content. It doesn't tell me anything about what this fabric is supposed to look like. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to library. I want you to go ahead and double click on fabric. And you'll see that CLO 3D comes with a great number of fabrics that you can access and use on your garments. And if you hover over any of these, okay, they'll tell you what the classification is. For this one, for instance, this is a woven with a content of 100% cotton. For most of them, but none of the ones I'm currently clicking, there will even often be a little preview for this one. There you go. You get a sense of what the drape is going to look like for this cotton terry cloth. Okay. So you'll see an arrangement of lots of different cottons. There's some denim, fur, interlock, knits. And again, you get a little preview here too of what this is going to look like. Okay. And so for the most part, what I'm clicking, I'm not seeing a great deal of texture. Okay. These are pretty flat. On others, I can definitely see the texture and what that's going to look like. Okay. What I'm going to do is for this garment, for the body, I'm going to go ahead and select this knit piqué, and I'm just going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it under fabric. Okay. I'm not going to replace body. I'm not going to place it on top of anything. I'm just going to load that as a separate fabric. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close my library. And from here, I want to go ahead and assign this fabric to the body of my polo. And to do that, I can actually go ahead and use my transform pattern tool, and I'll just go ahead and select everything. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this fabric over. Okay. And this should have worked. Okay. As a matter of fact, if I zoom in closely, you can see the texture of this knit piqué jersey. Okay, if I had done that a moment ago with any of these default fabrics, you would have found that they were very flat. It was solid. It would just immediately, speak of an illustration versus this fabric now speaks of texture and it feels much more true to life. Okay, If I go ahead and click on Knit Piqué Jersey, you'll see also the difference here in terms of your property editor. I see information that this again is, I see the name of the fabric. I won't keep repeating it. It's classified as a knit and it's 100% cotton. Okay, this is pretty typical for a polo. Okay. If you continue to scroll down, you'll see that this material is being applied to the front. Okay, you can also apply fabrics to the back and the sides. So obviously, if you've got something that's backed with a contrasting fabric, you may want to apply something different. Here you'll see the texture associated with this particular fabric that I've chosen, and that there's also a normal map associated with it. And these are a little, they're not super intuitive from my perspective. So this information is related to this fabric. The texture is what it looks like. Okay, so it could be a solid, it could be a print, it could be a stripe, what have you. Normal map actually refers to the texture itself, and those are separate files that are loaded to render what we actually see on our avatar. Regarding the normal map, you can actually increase the intensity, so you can actually make that deeper, a much more textured garment. Okay. If you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see right under displacement map, you've got this option for color, and we can change the color of this. And to do that, I actually will need to come back up here to where I see texture, and I'll just need to turn off desaturation. Okay, and by doing that, putting that check there, it's actually turning on desaturation. It's a little counterintuitive, but that's the way it works. And now that I've taken out the color that was currently associated with that fabric, I can come over here to color and click, and you'll see you get a color picker. Okay, just like Illustrator or Photoshop, I can come in here and choose a color. I could come in and type in a hexadecimal code. I could play with a variety of different books that are here. You can load color palettes, which we're just not going to do in the time that we have to train. But also I can use my eyedropper, and I can actually work anywhere within the interface and exterior to the interface. So if I had Illustrator open and I wanted to go over there and pick up a color, I could do that. Okay. For the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and choose a color to work with. Okay, I'm going to use this bright pink. And to exit, I'm actually going to have to escape this tool because it's just going to follow me everywhere. And if I try to hit the OK button, it's going to pick up whatever color I click on. So go ahead and hit escape. I'm going to go ahead and accept that. And again, you're going to see everything. Resituate my 3D avatar. Okay, everything in my 3D window has been colored. Okay, again, I've applied that to all of my pattern pieces. Now, I can continue to work with this. For instance, right now the buttons on my polo are still white. Okay, if I wanted to maybe color match this, I could go back to my fabric, click on color, grab that hexadecimal code, which I didn't grab a moment ago, and I'll just copy it. I could go to my button, and if I click on button, it's going to load the property editor for the button. So you'll see this all looks a little bit different than it did for my fabric. And I can double click on my color, and I'll go ahead and plug in that number and hit OK. All right. So that's just a little bit of what we can do in the realm of color and applying different fabrics. A tiny bit more information on the button menu here. Again, this is unique to button. It's a little different than fabric, but you'll see that you do have some options here in terms of the type of buttons. I could grab something that was a little bit shinier. I could grab something that was finished with velvet. You'll also see that there are some options here that show render only. And that just means that if I were to choose, for instance, a fur button, it's not going to be able to showcase what that's going to look like currently. I would actually have to go under render and go through the process of rendering it, which can sometimes take a little bit of time for me to see what that's going to look like. Okay, and in this instance, I'm just going to leave that as a matte finish. I will be back in a moment to continue working with this polo. We will practice applying prints and recoloring those as well.